Hey guys, what is happening? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. And this conversation about a Nintendo Switch Mini or a Nintendo Switch Pro or some kind of new hardware for the Switch does not seem to stop. It is not going away. There has been a ton of movement and discussion and rumors happening over the course of the past week, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. So going into this conversation, I can't really tell if it's something where I'm wanting to talk about the actual details or rumors or things happening about the new Switch hardware itself, or just the simple fact that the conversation doesn't seem to go away because plenty of people, plenty of magazine outlets, news outlets, YouTubers keep talking about this thing and keep having reasons to believe that it's happening behind the scenes. And, you know, I've gone on record several times over the course of probably the past year, discussing my opinions and feelings about this whole idea. And honestly, if you've been following all of those opinions, they've changed. I've definitely kind of gone back and forth and ridden sort of a roller coaster, you know, as far as what I personally think is happening, what I believe makes sense, what I believe would be maybe bad moves. It's just been a lot to take in, you guys, this past 6 months or year or however long this has been going on. And that makes it hard, you know, especially for someone in kind of my position as a YouTuber, to really know how to feel when you don't have all the info. And I've discussed before that there are some people out there who do claim to have inside information and do very much believe in these things that I also know. And so whereas I have the opportunity to maybe talk to some of those people behind the scenes and get the info that they have, I have elected not to do that because, as I've said before, I don't really want to go out of my way to tap people for sources and information. I just like to wait to see if and when they bring stuff to me, which does happen occasionally. As far as the new Switch Pros and Minis and stuff, no one has brought any information to me voluntarily, and I have not actively sought it out. So I enjoy talking about this as somebody who just is completely as not in the know as a lot of you guys out there. Now, from what I can tell, this past week has been so crazy and busy in the Switch Pro Mini rumor circuit for a couple of reasons. One of them being a report from the Wall Street Journal that seems to be claiming that Nintendo is moving their production of this new Switch hardware out of China to avoid some tariff threat that's happening because of production within Asia. And the other reason is because there's been some images and some mock-ups and also some product listings for accessories for a Nintendo Switch Mini. So a lot of this last week has been focused mostly on the concept of the Nintendo Switch Mini, not so much the Pro. And this thing about this Chinese company, Hansu, I think they're pronounced, or Hansa, having some products and accessories, some of which you can see here, that are for a Nintendo Switch Mini, has gotten a lot of people up in arms, a lot of people excited, a lot of people saying, hey, this is happening. Wall Street Journal's talking about it. They're moving production out of China because they are making these things. Here's this Chinese website going out of their way to post accessories for this thing. And then on top of that, there's also been a lot of mock-ups and images and concepts coming out that a lot of people are claiming to be either the actual real Switch product or something that is like a CG artist's rendering of what the actual product is. And so this is just all crazy. This has just been a lot to take in. I'm going to flash some of the images here of some of these mock-ups that have been making the rounds on what may or may not actually be a Switch Mini. I will say, looking at these mock-ups, not this one from like a year ago that a lot of people have talked about, but these recent ones doing the rounds, I have to say that they're definitely pretty cool looking devices, I'm not gonna lie. I think most of them are actually something that somebody claimed to have made on like a Reddit forum, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that that's what my buddy Smash JT made a good video breaking this down. I believe that's where most of these images are from. But this last one here is the one that, to me, really seems like it could be something real. And I believe it's the one that most people are claiming seems to be something official, but secret and behind the scenes. And when I look at this, I mean, all of these mock-ups are actually really cool products and designs to me, but when I look at this last one, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it looks cool. I don't want a Switch Mini because I don't want, and I'm just talking about me personally here, not the world market, not people out there in general. I'm just talking about Rob specifically. I don't like the idea of a Mini because I don't want a new Switch that doesn't add anything to the capabilities of the machine, and I don't want a Switch where the Joy-Cons don't come off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like the fact that the Joy-Cons come off, and I want more and more games to use that feature, and it just works for me. So to me, the idea of a Switch Mini has been something that removes features by not allowing the Joy-Cons to do what they do. And it's not so much that I have to have more power like a Pro would offer. It's just that in a world where we got an upgraded Switch or a changed Switch, I would prefer more power to less function and features. Which then, of course, brings us to the concept of a Mini being able to be played on a TV or not. And that is something that I've maintained from the get-go Nintendo won't do. So I think that if they are making some Nintendo Mini kind of device, Nintendo Switch Mini, I do believe it's going to be able to be played on the TV. Ever since my first video on the topic discussing Michael Pachter's quotes about not a Switch Mini, but about a handheld-only Switch, I have maintained Nintendo won't do that. They might make a mini console. They might make a console that is smaller form factor and that has Joy-Cons that don't come off. But I do believe that will be playable on your TV. And so then that brings us to the question, and probably what's somehow going to be the title of this video here, is why is this conversation about these devices still continuing? I mean, I didn't think I would make another video like this, you guys. About 2 or 3 months ago, I think I even made a video about why people are so into the idea of Switch Pros and Minis and why people won't let it go. And now I feel like I'm making a similar video because this thing just doesn't go away. And so if we look at the question, why do people keep talking about this? Why are people so interested in it? I mean, one of the answers is obvious, and it's the simple fact that, you know, rumors and details and leaks about this doesn't stop coming. I mean, the rumor mill, and I'm talking about from bigger, I'm not talking about from YouTubers per se. I mean, if you look at the bigger outlets like the Forbes and the Wall Street Journals and even the IGNs and whatnot, they keep putting stories out there about things happening that point to new Switch models. And so that, combined with the fact that a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people on YouTube claim to have behind the source information, knowing that these are true, means that there is just that smoke out there. I love the analogy of there's a lot of smoke to this fire. I've used it several times, and I do think it applies to this. Now, there has been a kind of a counterpoint argument put out there that, you know, people can continue to say, I know it's coming, I know it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And they can say it for years upon years, and eventually something so obvious might happen. And so it's not that those people were necessarily correct. It's that you can say anything is going to be true for 100 years, and eventually that thing is going to be true, but that doesn't mean that you had the inside information about it, if that kind of makes sense. And honestly, like, it's a good point. It's a good argument. I know what that argument is trying to say, and I don't think it's crazy or wrong. But I don't know that I feel like that applies here to this situation. And, you know, again, I'm somebody who I don't have inside information. I'm not claiming to know. I'm not claiming to have a dog in this fight. I'm just on the receiving end of this information and these rumors and sharing my opinions as they happen. But when I look at what's happening with the conversations about the Switch Mini and the Pro, this doesn't feel like something where people are just rolling the dice, hoping to get right after saying 12 times in a row that a Switch Mini is coming. It doesn't feel like that. Like they're just trying to say, Switch Mini's coming, the Switch Mini's coming, and then eventually Nintendo does it. And it's like, see, I was right the whole time. You should have listened to me. I knew the whole time. This doesn't feel like that. This kind of feels like a lot of people, and I'm even including the Wall Street Journals of the world, I think a lot of people do have information that seems to point to this being real. Which means that, you know, the more I believe that, the more I believe in the actual possibility of these things coming out. You know, focusing more back on the rumor and the discussion, I think that the plan based on this current rumor is for Nintendo to release a Nintendo Switch Mini this year and maybe a Pro or an upgrade at the end of 2019 or sometime in 2020. And, you know, conversations about every time a new game is announced for the Switch, a lot of people want to think, I mean, everyone says this. Oh, this game was announced, so clearly this is meant to be a showcase for the Pro. This is going to release just for the Pro. They announced The Witcher 3, it's for the Pro. They're making Metroid Prime 4, it's for the Pro. They're going to make Doom Eternal, it's for the Pro. I mean, whatever game people hear is announced for the Switch, they think it's all relating to Nintendo making an upgraded version of the console. And I don't know that I believe that. I mean, you know, I'm not ruling out the Switch Pro existing. I'm just ruling out the idea that every single new game announced has something to do with the Pro. And the Pro idea, man, that's just such a tricky proposition because, you know, I don't need any changes to the Switch personally. I'm fine letting Nintendo ride out the Switch for the next 3 or so years and then moving on to the next thing, because you guys know that my theory is around 2022 or 23, we're going to see the next hardware, the next gen hardware, not a new Switch, but like the next thing, the thing that is supposed to combat the PS5 and the Xbox One. And so releasing any change to the Switch now is like, well, I don't really need that, but if you're going to do that, yeah, I'd prefer the upgraded version. I'd prefer the one that has more power. But then you get into a situation where Nintendo might create a Switch that only plays certain games. And if some games are exclusive to that, that becomes a confusing, jumbling mess. And it's very awkward marketing to the consumer, to the average consumer, I should say, and the average gamer, not the people who are in the know like all of us. But then on top of that, there's both good and bad to a Pro. But then also a lot of people feel like, with the PS5 and the next Xbox on the horizon, I think a lot of people try to convince themselves that a Switch Pro is Nintendo's answer to that. Not a successor Switch, not a next-gen console, just upgrade the Switch to a Pro, and you've got your answer to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox One. And man, you guys know I am not an expert when it comes to technical specs and all that jargon and nonsense, but if there's one thing I feel really good about, it is that merely upgrading the already underpowered Switch is not going to be Nintendo's answer to a PlayStation 5. Think about what you're saying when you say that, because it doesn't really add up in my eyes. Like, the Switch is underpowered just to the PS4 and the Xbox One, let alone the PS Pro and the Xbox One X. Now you take the Pro and the X and you double or triple its capabilities into next-gen tech that is supposed to cover the next 7 years with a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Scarlet. You can't merely take the Switch as it exists and give it that tiny boost the same way a PS4 and a PS4 Pro is and expect that to combat that. In my eyes, I would wager a Switch Pro is only going to be a boost that maybe puts it on par with a normal PlayStation 4, not even the PlayStation 4 Pro. And the normal PlayStation 4 could never be competition for a PlayStation 5, right? So the idea of the Switch Pro, I don't know if this makes sense to you guys without any visuals, me just kind of like barking all this nonsense at you. But the quick version here, the TLDR of what I'm trying to say is, upgrading a PS4, listen to me, upgrading a Switch to a Switch Pro will have nothing to do with combating a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Scarlet. Because the third-party games coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlet, do you guys think that Grand Theft Auto 6 launching on a PlayStation 5 is going to be able to also work on a Switch Pro? I doubt it. In fact, I'm just going to say no, it can't. It won't be able to. And so, I think that a Switch Pro would exist merely to get some new legs out of the Switch, but not to be the answer to the PlayStation and the Xbox. That is where the successor machine comes in, which to me is around 2022 or 2023, and of course, you've also heard me say, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to launch that machine. I firmly believe that, so anyway, we're getting off the rails. We're getting into, let's just talk about Switch hardware, and I'm just kind of trying to talk about people's obsession with it. And I feel like I've kind of hit most of my points. It's just a weird thing, man. I almost want Nintendo to make one of these things just to get people to stop being so infatuated with it. I'm not infatuated with it. Just because I've talked about it a few times, guys, it's only because as news and conversation gets out there, I find it interesting. And you guys know I like to give my commentary opinions on topics that are interesting. I, however, don't care about a Switch Mini or a Switch Pro. I don't need or want these things. But I do like seeing the conversation and people reacting to it, and if these are real, then I will definitely have a lot to say, and that's going to be an interesting day. So I kind of want Nintendo to either just make these damn things real so people just stop talking about it, or to just actually say once and for all, we're 100% not doing it. Their quote about E3 was vague enough to still give people hope that these things are happening, where they're like, we are not announcing new hardware at E3. That's all they said. What they should have said is, we're not announcing new hardware ever until we're making our next-gen machine. Then people would be like, well, no more Switch Minis or Pros. But they left it just open enough to make it sound like, well, maybe they'll announce the hardware after E3. And I mean, even I think that that's possible. So anyway, this conversation is all over the place. Clearly, you can tell I have many opinions and feelings on this. It's crazy. This is crazy, you guys. This whole thing is nuts, and I just want it to be over Whether Nintendo confirms it or denies it outright forever and eternity, I just kind of want it to be over. But hey, the next time news comes out about it, I'm going to discuss it because it is interesting and it's kind of what I do with Rule of Two Review. It's part of the reason I made this channel. So I want to hear what you guys have to say about this, man. What are your thoughts for like the 10th time over the past 6 months? What are your guys' thoughts on the new rumors and the news stories out there about Switch Minis and Switch Pros and upgraded Switches? Do you think we're ever going to see one of these damn things? Or do you think it's just been nothing but smoke and mirrors this whole time? And eventually people are going to realize it's just not going to happen. I don't even know how I feel. I'm probably 60-40. I think I'm 60% into believing we're going to get something else and 40% into thinking it's not going to happen. So I'm slightly erring on the side of believing it. But what do you guys think, man? Discuss this crazy nonsense below. And this video is a wrap. Thanks to you, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.